Hello everyone, this is Truth Amongst Us, coming at you with another video from the citizen hearing on UFO Disclosure. Night lectures with Linda Moulton Howe, May 1st. I apologize deeply for taking so long to produce these. Been so busy with my research. But again, like with my last one, I'll keep this brief. And of course, these videos can only be 10 minutes in length because I was already told by Jim Boca that they cannot be any longer than that. And Jim Boca works with the Paradigm Group, who are responsible for this Congress hearing that happened back in April. So, without further ado, here is Linda.
And I can tell you for a fact, following up on what Don was just saying, that kind of intimidation was going on as late as 1974 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I have personally talked with a man who was involved in a sighting of craft, both triangular and spherical, in the Manzano Range in 1974, and it's a very long story, but the short is that he and colleagues were swept up by a security force and taken to Kirtland Air Force Base in an office because the only thing that they've ever known is that they saw a craft that had landed in the Manzano Range, triangular in shape, that had hieroglyphs on the top that they could see through binoculars. And that seemed to be of great concern to our government through security forces at Kirtland Air Force Base. And they held 3 of these people for 48 hours. And in the end, they told them with great threats that if they ever spoke, that they would be watched and monitored, and if they ever spoke about anything that happened when they were held at Kirtland, that they would end up in jail and they would have no possibility of a normal life. And that's 1974. A long time after 47 that our government has been playing hardball. And tonight, I thought that what I would do is share with you a presentation that I first did in 2008 because it includes videotape that I made with a man who had served in the Navy and, as far as I know, had firsthand his hands on photographs from Roswell, 1947, of the bodies in a hangar, and he sketched for me, as you will see in this presentation. And then the consequences to his own life for having seen these photographs in an unusual military context, and how it followed him through the rest of his career until he got out of the Navy. And the last conversation he had was with a 4-star in Washington, D.C., in Space Command, who had a dialogue with him, I think, with an astonishing conclusion. So Jennifer, if you are ready, we will try this. Normally I have my fingers on my computer, and we're going to try this tonight with her, and hopefully me giving you the right signals. Our government does not want public disclosure. That's the premise upon which all of us have to face and what we are standing on as we gather for this citizen hearing in 2013. It's been more than half a century of monitoring and interactions with non-humans by this government that does not want a single soul outside of inner sanctums to know. There is a formal policy of denial executed by President Harry S. Truman after July 1947 in the UFO crashes around Roswell. I have talked with a man who was working in the Naval lab in White Sands, and he said it is his understanding that it was an executive order by Harry S. Truman. It is not privy to the American public, and yet it is an executive order that carries through all of this time since 1947 with such force that agency after agency in the inertia of batons being passed has kept and strengthened and deepened this policy of denial to the point that I frankly am of the opinion that it is the suppression of the extraterrestrial interaction with this planet that is turning the United States into a complete totalitarian police state. In the early 1990s, a Las Cruces, New Mexico resident named Andrew Kistner met me to talk about leaked documents and information from two military sources at the White Sands Missile Range. Their information was about our government's military aggression in the 1940s to 1950s against an alien disk technology, the disk technology retaliation, and American government clampdown to keep the truth from the media and the public. By the late 1990s, Andy Kistner was elected state representative for New Mexico's Doña Ana County. During his 2 years in state government, Andy was frustrated by the secrecy and denials he encountered when he tried to find out more about the alleged 1947 UFO crashes in the Roswell region. Andy had tried to help Congressman Steve Schiff of New Mexico in that congressman's own effort to open up more facts about the Roswell events. But even Congressman Schiff was blocked. Andy Kistner told me his private White Sands sources not only categorized the disk technology as extraterrestrial, but the sources had an explanation for why there has been such a strict government policy of denial since the early 1940s, long before 1947. Before I go forward with insights from Andy Kistner's investigations, let's look at what was being discussed among President Harry S. Truman's investigators of the extraterrestrial biological presence on Earth. According to alleged and leaked government documents, a special executive order on September 24, 1947 was signed by President Truman to keep a tight lid on all non-human intelligence matters. President Truman allegedly handpicked a group of 12 people from top scientific, medical, military, and business leaders to study the extraterrestrial presence. And their code name was either Majority 12 or Majestic 12. I've had explanations for why both names have been used through history. Slide 2. In a September 24, 1947 MJ-12 mission statement, there was a preliminary white-hot intelligence assessment. It referenced another highly classified retrieval of an unidentified lenticular aerial technology, abbreviated to ULOT-1. That disk was in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and the year was 1941. What was retrieved? The craft's propulsion system in this document is called a, quote, neutronic power plant, close quote. Who studied this neutronic power plant? Physicist Robert Oppenheimer, head of the top secret Manhattan Project in Los Alamos, which created the first atomic bombs dropped on Japan in 1945. These leaked Majestic 12 documents indicate the U.S. government already had extraterrestrial hardware and perhaps entities dead and alive long before the New Mexico crashes in July 1947. Slide 3. The MJ-12 first annual report of 1952 began, quote, a review of the President's special panel to investigate the capture of unidentified plan form. Plan form is anything that has this shape to it. Space vehicles by U.S. armed forces and agencies. Their conclusion, slide 4, quote, a consensus reached by members of the panel that until positive proof that the Russians did not attempt a series of reconnaissance flights over our most secure installations, the sightings and recovered objects are interplanetary in nature, close quote. Slide 5. In paragraph 1 of that same report, the MJ-12 panel stated, quote, V-2 rocket launches at the White Sands Proving Ground, New Mexico, have been knocked down by undetermined jamming. The source of the jamming is believed to come from UFO sightings on or near the range. Guidance systems are believed to be vulnerable, and this presents a clear and present danger. Such keeper flights carrying nuclear weapons are too horrific to contemplate. Shielding of systems and circuits are underway. Slide 6. As to purpose and modus operandi, we are not certain, but it is clear that if these visitors had conquest in mind, it would not be difficult for them, given their ability to penetrate our airspace at will and their ability to jam radio, telephone, television, and teletype transmissions, let alone power grids, close quote. Did the United States government share these astonishing facts with any other leaders on this planet, let alone the American public? Slide 7. Paragraph L, Foreign Policy and National Security states, quote, to date, only Great Britain, Canada, and the Soviet Union are contacted and appraised in the event invasion is imminent. It is the current policy of the administration that no other foreign countries will be consulted or advised. The national security status of the Majestic operation exceeds that of the H-bomb development. The classification is higher, as we have heard before. Slide 8. It has been the downfall of great nations and cultures when a new reality is not readily accepted by the masses. The social order was severely ravaged by the last World War, with great damage to the religious dogma of earth without end, thus making a government disclosure irresponsible and inherently dangerous. Close quote. Slide 9. Under paragraph P, government policy of control and denial, MJ-12 expressed concern about controlling the press and said, quote, it is the recommendation of the President's special panel with concurrence from Majestic 12 that a policy of strict denial of the events surfacing from Roswell, New Mexico, and any other incident of such caliber be enforced. An interactive program of controlled releases to the media in such fashion to discredit any civilian investigation be instituted in accordance with the provisions of the 1947 National Security Act, close quote. Slide 10. In Annex B, paragraph 21, the panel chairman, who was MIT physicist Vannevar Bush, PhD, argued for, quote, funding air defense projects that would be useful in combating the new menace, meaning aerial discs, instead of developing ballistic missiles, which have proved to be useless, close quote, meaning that in attacking the discs, the missiles had failed. President Truman had appointed Vannevar Bush to be head of the Office of Scientific Research and Development, also known as OSRD. OSRD's largest project was the Manhattan Project at Los Alamos. Vannevar Bush was also in the President's MJ-12 group to study the extraterrestrial presence. Slide 11. The MJ-12 panel added Annex C, paragraph 2 to 3 in their first annual report, which warned, quote, men, equipment, weapons vanish without a trace. In all instances, the disappearances of our technology occurred in tropical climate and in the heat of battle or near combat zones. Missing aircraft, pilots, and crew are of special concern to the military when no explanations fit the usual reasons outside of combat. One such incident is the disappearance of a flight of 5 U.S. Navy TBM-3 Avenger torpedo bombers from the Naval Air Station in Fort Lauderdale, Florida on December 5th, 1945. Slide 12. It is believed that Flight 19 encountered a phenomenon of celestial nature, I'm reading from the Majestic 12 document. Celestial, by definition, relates to the sky or heaven. The last known radio transmission from the instructor pilot was heard by a ham operator, quote, "Don't come after me. They look like they are from outer space. I'm at 2,300 feet. Don't come after me." Then 2 years later, on January 7th, 1948, and about 7 months after the Roswell UFO crashes, U.S. Air Force Captain Thomas Mantell tried to pursue a large silver disk near Godman Air Force Base in Kentucky, but he died in the subsequent crash of his plane. Slide 13. The Majestic 12 panel quoted the last radio transmission from Captain Mantell, quote, "It appears to be a metallic object, and it is of tremendous size," close quote. The MJ-12 panel further explained that, quote, "When Godman personnel arrived at the crash scene," slide 14, "Mantell's F-51 was found in many pieces, not large sections as one would find from a free stick descent."
And unfortunately, I had to stop it there. But as Linda was saying, the government has for quite some time been covering up the alien and UFO presence on our planet. Now, of course, here she is quoting information from the, well, very controversial Majestic 12 documents that skeptics have claimed are fake, while researchers, UFO researchers, have said are real. So you can take it for what it is. I always encourage everyone to research every topic, including the Majestic 12 documents that Stanton T. Freeman claimed was mailed to a colleague, and that's how he acquired them. So, but that, well, this here is the May 1st night lecture. A majority of this clip is just mostly Linda discussing the Majestic 12 document, and the Majestic 12 document has been in circulation for quite some time, and the information just goes on about, you know, about a cover-up and how a selected 12 from our government were basically responsible for releasing any propaganda into the mainstream to cover up any UFO crashes and to basically instigate any kind of campaign or campaigns to, well, make the phenomenon seem silly. And that's pretty much the gist of the Majestic 12 subject. And sorry if I sound a little bit off today, but I haven't had my caffeine yet. I'm recording this early in the morning. So anyways, I will continue to record these and provide you with the best information possible. Again, I really wish I could provide the entire clip. It would be great if I could, but unfortunately I cannot. So, as I always say, guys and gals, keep your eyes to the skies. You never know what you're going to see.